The precipice of defiance. The Galactic Council chamber was a marvel of engineering and ego. Its domed ceiling shimmered with starscapes, each representing a member species' home system. Rows upon rows of alien delegates occupied the chamber, their forms as varied as the biomes of their planets, chitinous arthropods clicking in anticipation, amorphous blobs pulsating faintly, and hulking reptilians eyeing the center stage with predatory glee. All eyes were now on the human standing alone beneath the towering throne of the Council's king. The king, a behemoth draped in gilded armor, stood slowly, his four spindly arms rising to command silence. His face, if it could be called that, was a mass of writhing tendrils surrounding 6 gleaming eyes, each one radiating disdain. When he spoke, his voice echoed unnaturally, augmented by the chamber's translation systems. "Humans," he began, his tone resonating with authority, "you are infants in this galaxy, reckless, impudent. Your scientists meddle with forces they cannot comprehend, upsetting the delicate equilibrium we have maintained for millennia. We are the guardians of peace and order, yet you challenge us." His tendrils writhed in displeasure, and a soft murmur rippled through the gathered delegates. The king's 6 eyes locked onto Marcus Kane, Earth's representative to the council. "Tribute," the king demanded, his voice slicing through the chamber's thick air, "to atone for your arrogance, metals, energy, and the servitude of your people. Comply, and Earth will be spared annihilation. Refuse," the king's mouth tendrils curled into what might have been a smile, "and Earth will burn." Marcus Kane stood motionless in the center of the chamber, dressed in a simple gray suit. He seemed almost absurdly out of place in a room bristling with ornate robes, glittering scales, and alien regalia. Yet, there was something about him, his unyielding posture, the quiet steel in his gaze, that made even the bravest delegates uneasy. "And what?" Marcus asked, his voice calm, measured. "Would you have us call this act justice, generosity, mercy?" A delegate, a serpent-like being with glistening green scales, hissed in derision, "Mercy, human, the last species to defy this council met extinction. You should be grateful we even offer you the choice." Laughter erupted across the chamber, a discordant symphony of clicks, hums, and guttural roars. Marcus let it roll over him, unflinching, his eyes, cold and calculating, were fixed on the king. "Your Majesty," Marcus said, addressing the king directly, "you accuse us of arrogance, yet here you stand, demanding that an entire species kneel before your throne. What you call order, we call tyranny. What you call peace, we call oppression." The king's tendrils stiffened, and the laughter died abruptly. "You are testing my patience, ambassador," the king said, his voice low and dangerous. "Choose your next words carefully, for they may be your last." Marcus stepped forward, reaching into his pocket and retrieving a small cylindrical device. He placed it on the floor, and a shimmering hologram of Earth materialized, rotating serenely in the void. "For centuries," Marcus began, his voice steady but growing in intensity, "Earth has weathered storms, wars, and catastrophes. We are a species forged by struggle. Do you think we fear your threats of annihilation? We have faced it before and survived." The room erupted into chaos. Delegates shouted in disbelief, many leaping to their feet. The king raised a hand, and the uproar subsided. "You are either the bravest fool I have ever met," the king sneered, "or the most deluded. Do you truly believe your people can resist the combined might of this council?" Marcus smiled a thin, dangerous smile. "I don't believe, your Majesty. I know." The king's laughter echoed through the chamber, a guttural rumble that shook the walls. "So be it," he said, his voice dripping with menace. "Your defiance will be your undoing. History will forget your arrogance as we reduce your planet to ash." Marcus's expression darkened. His voice dropped to a tone so cold it seemed to freeze the air. "You've underestimated us, your Majesty. That will be your undoing." Without another word, Marcus turned and began walking toward the chamber doors. The silence was deafening as his footsteps echoed in the vast hall. As the doors hissed shut behind him, the king sat back in his throne, tendrils twitching in contemplation. "Brave words," he muttered, but bravery cannot stop annihilation. Yet, deep in his chest, a faint unease began to stir. He had seen something in the human's eyes, something he hadn't seen in countless millennia. Confidence. Humanity's answer was coming, and it would be far louder than words. Humanity's answer. Marcus Kane strode down the labyrinthine halls of the Council's colossal station, his expression unreadable. Around him, attendants, guards, and delegates from countless species hurried past, some glancing at him with curiosity, others with pity. The station's air hummed with the faint vibration of its energy core, and the lights, an artificial facsimile of distant suns, glared overhead. When he reached the docking bay, a small entourage of aides awaited him. A woman stepped forward, her dark hair tied tightly back, her face a mask of professionalism that barely concealed the storm behind her eyes. "How did it go?" she asked quietly. Marcus exhaled. "Exactly as expected, Sarah." "They demanded tribute?" "They demanded submission," he corrected, brushing past her toward the sleek black shuttle waiting at the far end of the bay. "And I told them where they could shove it." Sarah followed, her voice a whisper now. "Do you think they'll attack?" Marcus stopped abruptly and turned to face her. His steel-gray eyes were hard, unyielding. "They will. They always do when someone refuses to kneel. But that's what we were counting on." The words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken implications. Back on Earth, in a heavily fortified bunker deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, General Hector Langley stood before a massive holotable. Surrounding him was the core of Earth's military and scientific leadership, their faces grim but determined. The table projected a detailed three-dimensional map of the galaxy, with the Council's territory outlined in ominous red. A technician turned to Langley. "Sir, the ambassador's signal just came through. The Council is likely mobilizing within the week." Langley nodded, his jaw tightening. "Then we move to Phase 2. Notify all units, Operation Iron Fist is a go." At his words, the room erupted into action. Officers barked orders into comms, analysts began crunching data, and technicians raced to prepare systems that had been in the works for years. Langley turned to a woman standing nearby, her lab coat stark against the olive-drab uniforms around her. "Dr. Asher," he said, "is the prototype ready?" "As ready as it'll ever be," she replied. "The neural interface still has some risks, but we've mitigated most of them. The Titan-class platforms are online and waiting for activation." Langley's lips pressed into a thin line. "Good, we'll need them." In orbit above Earth, the Erebus, humanity's flagship and pride of its newly minted interstellar fleet, prepared for battle. The ship was a marvel of engineering, its hull bristling with advanced weaponry that blended the best of human ingenuity and reverse-engineered alien technology. Its captain, Admiral Elena Torres, stood on the bridge, surveying the vast expanse of space through the viewport. "Admiral," her XO said, "we've received confirmation from command. Operation Iron Fist is greenlit." Torres nodded, her expression unreadable. "Prepare the fleet. We've trained for this moment. Every pilot, every gunner, every engineer knows what's at stake." The XO hesitated. "And if we fail?" Torres turned to him, her eyes blazing. "Then we make damn sure the galaxy remembers the day humanity refused to bow." The Council's fleet began its mobilization within days. Hundreds of massive warships, each one a testament to millennia of interstellar dominance, emerged from their staging grounds. Their hulls were a patchwork of materials from conquered worlds, their weapons systems optimized through eons of conflict. At their head was the Sovereign Wrath, the King's personal flagship, a leviathan that dwarfed even the largest vessels in its fleet. On board, the King sat in his command chamber, surrounded by advisors and generals. "Do you believe the humans truly pose a threat?" one advisor asked, his voice a mix of curiosity and contempt. The King's tendrils twitched. "They are an annoyance. Bold, yes, but ultimately inconsequential. They lack the numbers, the technology, the experience. Their resistance will crumble under the weight of our armada." The advisor bowed his head in agreement. "And their ambassador?" The King's eyes narrowed. "A clever puppet, but words cannot shield a planet from orbital bombardment. By the end of this campaign, Earth will be a smoldering ruin, and their defiance will be a forgotten whisper. As the Council fleet surged through hyperspace, Earth prepared. The Erebus led a defensive line of heavily armed frigates, destroyers, and carriers, each ship packed with weaponry and tactics designed to counter alien technology. On the surface, anti-orbital cannons and kinetic interceptors were primed, their operators ready for the fight of their lives. In the depths of the Pacific Ocean, the true ace-up humanity's sleeve remained hidden, a network of experimental stealth platforms armed with weapons capable of destabilizing even the largest Council vessels. And in space, hidden within a cloud of debris at the edge of the solar system, an object waited. Its purpose was simple: to ensure that, should Earth fall, the Council would not escape unscathed. As the Council fleet crossed into the solar system, their sensors detected the massive human fleet waiting for them. The king leaned forward in his throne, a predatory glint in his eyes. "Prepare to engage," he ordered, his voice echoing through the ship. "Crush them." On board the Erebus, Admiral Torres stood on the bridge, her face illuminated by the faint glow of tactical displays. "All ships," she said, her voice calm but firm, "hold the line. Remember, we're not just fighting for Earth. We're fighting to show the galaxy that humanity will never be slaves." The two fleets converged, a silent storm brewing in the void. And then, with a single, deafening roar of plasma fire and railgun rounds, the battle for Earth began. The fire of defiance. The opening salvo of the battle was a symphony of destruction. The Council's fleet unleashed their weaponry in a dazzling cascade of plasma bursts, laser beams, and missiles. The void of space erupted into brilliant colors, the cold silence shattered by the fury of interstellar war. Human ships responded in kind, their railguns thundering and missile pods streaking across the blackness with trails of white-hot exhaust. The Erebus led the charge, its main cannon unleashing devastating kinetic slugs that tore through enemy ships like a hot blade through ice. "Enemy vessels closing on our flanks," shouted Lieutenant Commander Patel from the tactical station aboard the Erebus. "Bring the Phoenix wing around to intercept," Admiral Torres ordered, her tone sharp and decisive. "Deploy point defense drones and prepare for broadside engagement." The Erebus tilted slightly, its massive frame moving with surprising grace as it repositioned to cover its allies. Its point defense systems lit up, intercepting incoming enemy missiles in bursts of precise laser fire. On Earth, in the skies above the planet, the anti-orbital defense systems roared to life. Massive railguns hidden in fortified bunkers fired hypervelocity slugs into the void, targeting Council ships attempting to breach the atmosphere. Laser platforms stationed on satellites burned through enemy shields, while experimental particle cannons sent arcs of energy ripping through the largest of the invading vessels. General Langley stood in the central command center, his eyes locked on the holographic display of the battle. "Are the orbital strike teams in position?" he asked. "Yes, sir," replied an aide. "They're standing by for insertion the moment we open a gap in their defenses." "Good," Langley said grimly. "We can't hold forever. We need to take this fight to them." On the Council flagship, the Sovereign Wrath was a fortress in space. Its shields absorbed the opening volleys with ease, and its weaponry unleashed devastating attacks that shredded human ships with terrifying precision. The king watched the battle unfold, his multiple eyes gleaming with satisfaction. "They fight well for primitives," he mused aloud, "but resistance only prolongs their suffering." One of his generals, a towering insectoid with serrated mandibles, clicked in agreement. "Their fleet is impressive for its size, but they cannot match our numbers or firepower." The king's tendrils curled into a grotesque smile. "Indeed, begin targeting their flagship. Let them see the futility of their defiance." On board the Erebus, "Admiral, they're focusing fire on us," Patel called out. Torres gritted her teeth. "All hands, brace for impact. Reinforce forward shields and divert auxiliary power to engines. We need to stay mobile." The Erebus shuddered as enemy fire slammed into its shields. Sparks flew from overloaded conduits, and alarms blared across the bridge. Status on the Titan-class platforms? Torres demanded. Dr. Asher reports they're coming online now, said the XO, but they're untested in live combat. Torres's eyes narrowed. We don't have the luxury of waiting. Deploy them. The Titans rise. On Earth's surface, deep within hidden facilities, massive doors began to slide open, revealing towering machines unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The Titan-class platforms were the pinnacle of human engineering, colossal bipedal war machines, each armed with a terrifying arsenal of railguns, missile pods, and energy weapons. Their pilots, connected via neural interfaces, felt every movement of their machines as if they were extensions of their own bodies. The Titans launched into space, their thrusters propelling them into the thick of the battle. As they arrived, the tide began to shift. One Titan, codenamed Behemoth, fired its main railgun at a Council destroyer, the kinetic slug ripping through the ship's shields and splitting it in two. Another, Aegis, used its energy shields to protect a cluster of human frigates from incoming fire, allowing them to regroup and counterattack. The sight of the Titans sent shockwaves through the Council fleet. The king watched with a mixture of surprise and fury. "What are these machines?" he demanded. They appear to be human constructs," one of his generals stammered, "but their power output rivals that of our dreadnoughts." The king's tendrils writhed in frustration. "Focus all fire on those machines. They cannot stand against us." Marcus Kane's plan. Meanwhile, Marcus Kane had not left the battlefield. While the fleets clashed above, he was deep within a stealth shuttle heading toward the Sovereign Wrath. The device he had placed on the Council's floor during his speech was far more than a simple hologram, it was a beacon. "ETA to the flagship?" he asked, his voice calm despite the chaos. 2 minutes, sir," replied the pilot, "but their sensors will pick us up as soon as we're in range. They'll be too busy with the Titans to stop us," Marcus said, fastening his harness. "And if they're not, well, that's why we brought the package." In the shuttle's cargo hold was a weapon humanity had never deployed before, a device designed not to destroy, but to disable. The Council ships relied on an intricate lattice of interconnected AI systems that the device could overload in a single pulse. "We get on board, plant the device, and get out," Marcus instructed his small team. "No deviations, no heroics, understood?" "Understood, sir," they replied in unison. The turning point. As the Titans tore through the Council fleet, and Earth's defenses held firm, Marcus's shuttle slipped past the chaos, approaching the Sovereign Wrath. Inside the flagship, the king watched as his fleet faltered. A flicker of doubt crossed his mind. "Why are they not breaking?" he muttered. "Why do they fight so hard, knowing they cannot win?" He would soon learn the answer, but by then, it would be too late. The humans were not just fighting to survive, they were fighting to win, and Marcus Kane's plan would ensure that the king of the Council would pay the ultimate price for underestimating humanity. The battle was far from over, but the seeds of victory had been sown. The king's fall. The Sovereign Wrath loomed like a black hole of authority at the center of the Council fleet. Its massive, spiked hull was a grim reminder of the thousands of species that had been subjugated or obliterated by its master. Yet, as Marcus Kane's stealth shuttle approached, the mighty flagship seemed distracted. The Titans and the human fleet had done their job. The Council's once unbreakable lines were crumbling under the weight of Earth's unexpected resistance. Inside the shuttle, Marcus's team prepared for their infiltration. The device, a sleek, obsidian sphere humming faintly with power, sat secured in the cargo bay. It was humanity's deadliest secret, a cybernetic pulse bomb designed to shut down advanced AI systems for light years around. "Approaching docking port," whispered the pilot. The shuttle maneuvered with precision, bypassing external patrols and sliding into one of the Sovereign Wrath's maintenance hangars. The team disembarked swiftly, their movements synchronized and silent. "Move fast," Marcus ordered. "We plant the device near their core AI and exfil before they even realize we're here." On board the Sovereign Wrath, the king sat in his command throne, his tendrils writhing in irritation. Despite their overwhelming numbers and firepower, The Council fleet was struggling to gain the upper hand. "Report," he bellowed. A holographic projection of a general flickered before him. "Their Titans are dismantling our dreadnoughts, Majesty. We underestimated their technological capabilities." The king snarled, "No more excuses. Focus all remaining ships on the Titans and their flagship. Wipe them from existence." But even as he issued the order, a faint alarm echoed through the command chamber. "What is that?" the king demanded. "Security breach detected in Sector 9, a technician reported. Small team, humans." The king's eyes widened. For the first time in centuries, he felt a twinge of fear. The infiltration. Marcus and his team moved through the Sovereign Wrath's labyrinthine corridors with practiced efficiency. Alien guards fell silently to suppressed weapons, their massive forms crumpling to the floor. Every step brought them closer to the ship's AI core, a glowing, pulsating orb at the heart of the vessel. "Status?" Marcus whispered. "We're close," Sarah replied, her voice steady despite the tension. "Core room is 50 meters ahead." As they approached, the corridor widened into a massive chamber. At its center stood the AI core, encased in shimmering energy fields. Marcus gestured to his team, and they fanned out, planting the device at the base of the core. "Device armed," Sarah said, her fingers dancing over its controls. "Good," Marcus replied, glancing at his watch. "We've got 3 minutes before this thing activates. Move." The counterattack. Back in the solar system, the battle raged on. The Titans had carved a path through the Council fleet, their weapons tearing apart even the most fortified vessels. The Erebus led the human fleet in a coordinated counterattack, pushing the invaders further from Earth's orbit. "Admiral," Patel called, "Council forces are beginning to retreat." Torres's eyes narrowed. "Hold position. They're not beaten yet. This is a feint, stay sharp." But even as she spoke, an encrypted message came through her console. She opened it, her expression hardening as she read the contents. "It's from Kane," she said. "The device is about to go live. Prepare for the pulse." The king's desperation. Inside the Sovereign Wrath, the king stormed toward the AI core chamber, flanked by his elite guards. He arrived just in time to see Marcus Kane standing at the device, a grim smile on his face. "You," the king roared, his tendrils thrashing, "you dare defile my ship?" Marcus turned to face him, calm and composed despite the towering figure before him. "Your Majesty," he said, his tone dripping with mockery, "so good of you to join us." The king lunged, but Marcus pressed a button on the device, and the room filled with an ear-splitting hum. The AI core flickered and dimmed, its energy fields collapsing. Across the ship, systems began to fail, lights flickering and weapons falling silent. "What have you done?" the king bellowed, his voice a mix of rage and panic. "Leveled the playing field," Marcus replied, stepping back as his team fired on the king's guards. The king roared in fury, charging toward Marcus, but before he could reach him, the pulse bomb detonated. A wave of energy surged through the ship, shutting down every system and leaving the Sovereign Wrath adrift. The final blow. With the flagship disabled, the rest of the Council fleet descended into chaos. Ships lost coordination, their AI systems rendered useless. The human fleet seized the opportunity, pressing their advantage and systematically dismantling the once mighty armada. On Earth, General Langley watched as the holographic display shifted from red to green. "We've done it," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "The Council fleet is retreating." The king's fate. Aboard the Sovereign Wrath, Marcus Kane stood over the defeated king, his team securing the chamber. "You think this changes anything?" The king spat, his tendrils twitching weakly. "The Council will never stop. They will hunt you to the ends of the galaxy." Marcus knelt down, his face inches from the king's. "Then let them come," he said coldly. "We'll be ready." As the human fleet surrounded the crippled flagship, Marcus gave the final order. "Take him alive. The galaxy deserves to see what happens when tyrants fall." Epilogue. The battle marked a turning point in galactic history. The Council's dominance was shattered, their aura of invincibility destroyed. Humanity, once considered a fledgling race, emerged as a symbol of defiance and resilience. The king of the council, stripped of his throne, was paraded before the galaxy, a reminder that no empire, no matter how mighty, could stand forever against the will of a united people. And as Earth rebuilt, its leaders knew one truth above all: the galaxy had underestimated humanity for the last time. End of story.